Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be going over some AFC West free agency and offseason grades. Before we get started though, please drop a quick like and a sub on today's video. That would really help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoy the video and let's dive right into it. So when we start with the NFC South here, let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons, they didn't have a ton of cap space, so that for those reasons, I'm going to be giving them a C here. Right, they probably should have gotten a D because they didn't really do anything. They didn't really improve their team too much here by getting Lee Smith, Brandon Copeland, and Eric Harris. They didn't really improve their team whatsoever, but I'm giving them a C instead of a D because they didn't really have any cap space to improve their team. So with that said, I mean, the Falcons, they didn't do much. They really didn't. They brought in another tight end for a late round 2022 draft pick. They added another linebacker. They added a safety. They added some rotational guys that they can move in some different situations. But overall, they didn't really improve their team. I think the draft's going to be a lot more important for this Falcons team. Obviously, they have the 4th overall pick. So watch out for that. But overall, the Falcons, they didn't do much in free agency. So I'm going to give them a C. And I'm only giving them a C because they didn't really have any cap space to do anything in free agency. Now, though, let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. So I'm going to give a B+ too. Let's just look at the guys that they signed. David Moore, solid wide receiver. Doesn't really exactly replace Curtis Samuel, but he's a guy who can stretch the field and can be a deep ball catcher. Dan Arnold, they brought in. They brought in Cam Irving as a tackle. They franchise tagged Taylor Moton. They brought in Pat Elflein for the offensive line. Brought in Morgan Fox, but I really like the two moves here: Denzel Perriman and Haason Reddick to improve the linebacking core. The really two big things for the Panthers, I think, was getting some pass rush and getting some help on the offensive line. For starters, I think they did a really good job addressing the offensive line, right? They got Cam Irving. He's a solid, he's not a great tackle, but he can get the job done at tackle, and he can play a variety of positions. He can be a backup. He can start for you. So I think he can do those things. Pat Elflein, you can play him at center. You can play him at guard. Another guy that you can move in different situations, and he can probably produce for you. So I think I like that move too for the Carolina Panthers. Not too expensive either. 3 years, $11.5 million with $6 million guaranteed. And then, of course, franchise tagging Taylor Moton. That was absolutely necessary. Need to keep him in the building. So I like what they did with the offensive line. Also, I think that Morgan Fox is a super underrated defensive lineman. He played really well with the LA Rams, I want to believe, thanks to Aaron Donald there. But overall, I like what Morgan Fox brings to the table. 2 years, $8.1 million might be a little bit too much money for him, but I think that's a solid move there to add some depth to the defensive line. But most importantly, I talked about the linebacking core, right? That was something that they need to improve, and the defense especially. That's something that they really need to improve at this offseason. They brought in Denzel Perriman, who, he's a solid linebacker that can, he's got a knack for the ball, and I like that about him. And he had a lot of offers, but he agreed to a 2-year deal with the Panthers, add some veteran linebacker help for them, and I like that move for them too. And then, of course, Haason Reddick, which is, I think, the one that I really want to talk about the most. This is a great deal for the Panthers. This guy had 12 sacks last year, and sure, 5 of those sacks came in one game against the New York Giants, but nonetheless, he still got 12 sacks. And a 12-sack guy could easily have gone for 11, 12, $13 million, but this is a 1-year deal, max value of $8 million, and it's $6 million guaranteed. So it's $8 million with incentives. So overall, I absolutely love this move from the Panthers. This is a guy in Haason Reddick who can get after the quarterback. He can easily put up 7 to 8 sacks next year. I don't think that'll be too hard for him getting to the quarterback. But more importantly, it's a short year, 1-year prove-it deal. And if he doesn't play well, it doesn't matter because it's not a long-term deal. You didn't sign him to a 3-4-year deal, and you're not going to have to live with that. It's a 1-year deal. If he plays well, you re-sign him for a bigger contract. But if he doesn't play well, it doesn't matter. It's in the back burner. So overall, I like that move from the Carolina Panthers going out and getting Haason Reddick, and for those reasons, I'm going to go out and give them a B+ during free agency. I like how they addressed the offensive line. I like how they addressed the pass rushers and the linebacker position, and then they added some depth around the other parts of their team. So really good job here. Now though, let's go to the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints probably should be getting a C for free agency, but once again, this was another team that didn't have any cap space, and they made the most of their cap space. So that's why I'm going to give them a B-. So when we look at this Saints team here, Jameis Winston was their big free agency signing. I liked how they franchise tagged Marcus Williams, keeping him at safety. And then they just, they brought in some other guys, but they really didn't have any cap space to do anything. I like the Jameis Winston signing for a few reasons. One, he comes in on a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. It's a short-term deal. It's a prove-it deal. If he plays well this season, then he gets a bigger contract next season. But overall, I just like this from the Saints. This is a smart move here because at the end of the day, I mean, Jameis Winston is going to come in there and compete for that starting job with their other quarterback there. I don't know why. It's Taysom Hill. There we go. I don't know why his name was blanking on me. But Jameis Winston, I think, he'll compete for that starting job. It's a short, small deal. And, he's played at a really high level before in the NFL. He had that season a few years ago where he threw for 5,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns, and 30-plus interceptions. And yeah, he threw for 30-plus interceptions, but you've also got to remember he threw for 5,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns. So if he can come back on those interceptions, and Sean Payton's definitely a guy who could help him out in that regard. So I think that's a really good move for him. He's going to get an opportunity to start in New Orleans next year. And although he didn't start in New Orleans last year when Drew Brees went down with injury, the Saints are really high on him, and they wouldn't have brought him back if they didn't think he could really compete and have a shot at that starting job. So I like Winston going to the Saints there. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense for him, makes a lot of sense for the Saints. He already knows the system. And I think he's going to get a really legit shot to really compete next year and play at a high level with some really awesome weapons that they have there in New Orleans with some of the pieces they have on that offense. Now though, let's go to the Tampa Bay Bucs. And for the Tampa Bay Bucs, they have absolutely got to get an A for free agency. And I'm a really big fan of this Bucs offseason and free agency because they re-signed their guys. They know how these guys are going to play in their system. Chris Godwin, franchise tag. Rob Gronkowski, brought him back on a 1-year, $8 million deal. Shaq Barrett, re-signed him to a long-term deal. I think he's only getting like $5.6 million next year or something small like that because remember, they have barely any cap space next season. Lavonte David, they brought back, found a way to do that. 2-year deal worth up to $25 million. They brought, back Ryan Suckup, who, was able to be a solid kicker for them after, the Bucs have had kicker problems over the past, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons. He was a really solid kicker for them. So I like how they brought all these guys in. The big thing about free agency is you think these guys can really fit into your system, but you really have no idea if they will play well or they won't play well. And if you start handing out big contracts to players that you think will play well, but they don't play well, that looks bad on you, and that's a GM's worst nightmare. Here for the Bucs, though, all these guys have succeeded in the Bucs system. They already know what they're getting, so they're just re-signing all their players. That's what they're doing, and all these players help them on their run to the Super Bowl. So I think that they have to get an A because they re-signed their guys. They know what these guys are going to be able to produce. And with those, and for those reasons, I mean, they're going to be able to keep the core of their team back to another playoff and hopefully Super Bowl run for the Buccaneers. So, in their quest to run it back, in their quest to go for two, I think that's the expression they're going for. I mean, they did exactly what they needed to do. They brought Godwin back. They brought Gronk back. They brought Shaquil Barrett back. They brought Lavonte David back, Ryan Suckup back. But that's the core of their team, and they were able to bring all those important pieces during their Super Bowl run last year onto their team for next year. So I really like those moves from the Bucs, and that's why they get an A. And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.